Dude, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. We were just talking about the project. I don't think you knew that I was trying to do this, but again, the reason that I wanted to interview you and really just catch up with you is that, like I was saying, you have this really cool story. We've talked about many times about the projects I have, the projects you have, and uh, we never get into the roots of it, right? Because we were having a couple of drinks, we got distracted, and I figured this would be the perfect avenue for to get in touch with Rafael, see what he's doing, and catch up. So again, thank you for taking the time, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, this is really, really cool. I'm excited that you're doing this, and I'm honored, really, seriously, that you think my story is fascinating. Because to me, it's just like whatever. But
It
yeah,
is though.
I love to, I love to share. I love to, I always love to, you know, talk real life with my friends. So
Perfect.
thank you.
Well, absolutely. So let's start with a couple of questions. I wanted to ask you about your recent career path, and just before we started the recording, we were talking about. Well, you told me that you took some ballsy moves, for lack of a better word, and now I didn't know about that. So I'm gonna ask you about that. But let's start first with your career path, and then we'll go. I have some questions about your upbringing and some other topics, but. Before you tell everyone about your own business or your whole idea, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you did in IBM, because I thought it was really cool. You were traveling a lot. You were working for one of, IBM, an international company, well known all around the world. So how did you get into that? Was it because of what you studied? Was it because of the location you were living? Can you walk me through your start at IBM?
Sure, absolutely. So I went to school for graphic design, and I originally my dream was to lay out pages and magazines for GQ. That was my dream since I was in college. Once I realized that that was what I wanted to do. When I graduated in the early 2000s, print started to die down or evolve, and everything was becoming more digitized. So I had to evolve into more interactive design. I didn't know what that looked like, though. I didn't want to be a coder. I didn't want to be a developer. And so I instead I did a lot of freelancing, and then I did some digital marketing. And then the iPhone came out.
Okay.
And there was this whole world of apps that kind of opened up for designers to come in and design and develop apps. That really interested me, and so I started designing apps in the early 2011, 2012.
Can I stop you there for a second? Just
sure.
I'm curious, like two things. One, you wanted to make images for GQ, so you were really mainly interested first in just the artistic side, right? Like there was no side to GQ of designing actual applications. I guess where I'm going with this is there's such a different, it's a different world from just designing images from a cover to designing apps. To me, it's almost like a different degree, a different type of career. So how,
yeah, it is.
How do you make that transition? Like, I get that it was interesting when the iPhones come out and everything, but how did you have the knowledge to say, like, well, I could design the apps?
I didn't. So the any and everything, like the words, the way that layouts are put together, the images in a magazine, that's what I went to school for. Like I understood how to design with, I had, whether it was with different tools, but then also really just be able to put together different shapes and colors and text and texture. And so that basic foundation of design helped me translate those skill sets into more of a technology career oriented field. But I stumbled my way through it. I mean, I didn't go to school to design apps. A lot of my, and I think that this is probably true for most folks in our generation. A lot of what I know is just Google
Yeah.
and figure out like, how do I do this? Go on YouTube. How do I create an app? What are the steps? And then you just trial and error.
So that's really, I mean, that's really how you learn. Like, it was not like you went for additional education. You're like part of the generation that's straight up, let's Google, let's do it yourself kind of thing. And that
100%.
man, that's really impressive. That's really impressive that from just like curiosity that you were able to get into like a company like IBM just doing that. And
Yeah, the IBM thing was, I was working on my current company full time, designing fragrances, personal fragrances at the time. But this opportunity with IBM came along because I still have a friend actually that works at IBM that was trying to get folks that were really good in design for this partnership with the Apple IBM partnership. Basically, at the time, Apple was really interested in working with IBM because IBM has a lot of knowledge or a lot of like expertise in many verticals and industries. And IBM really, I think, saw an opportunity to work with Apple because Apple really is very design focused.
right.
And so I think it was, at the time, it was a good synergy that helped them, bond over, some common interests.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So it was something you were enjoying for the longest time too, right? Like working for a company that it's related to Apple. I mean, IBM, like this very popular, world-known companies. You were happy with the work environment, the stress level, the traveling you were doing. I mean, overall, it was a good experience.
100%. I mean, I think that my time at IBM was incredible. I have nothing but like the fondest memories. The time that I worked on this partnership with, the Apple IBM partnership it's going to be in my mind forever. And it was the rigor that it put me through allowed me to not only become a better designer, but then it was like a crash course in creating, really great apps that are easy to use, that serve, the user well. Yeah, so it was pretty great to be part of that whole team.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of going somewhere with this. Like, for one, I think that most people would kind of kill to have a job like that because you're like, let's be realistic. I think that I have a friend of mine who you've met, for example, Paul Fuentes, and I've told he does pretty well for himself in Instagram. Like, but the reality is that I think for most graphic designers, it is kind of hard to get a job that pays well or. I mean, I think that is the reality because it's a very competitive job and you have to be very creative. You cannot just go to school like in maybe other fields like engineering and like know the basics. It's like you have to have the creativity part of it. So it seems to me that like you got lucky. You had a job that paid well, good for your resume. You were traveling a lot, right? Like you were content with all of those things. What would make you be crazy enough to think about starting your own business?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. A lot of my friends do say, "Wow, it's like skydiving."
Yeah.
You're flying out of a perfectly good working airplane.
Yeah.
Because you are crazy enough to do it, and because there's an adventure in the process that you're wanting to just go through and feel what that's like. Same thing with me. I started the company that I'm in right now, or that I have right now, Alfred Lane, 7 years ago. And at the time, this was pre-IBM. I was working at another company doing digital marketing. I was also doing well there, and I was very much in the track for becoming, a senior creative leader.
Okay.
But at the time, I had this sort of itch and curiosity. Like I had tried many different businesses, and they all failed. Like I can tell you some crazy stories of businesses that I started that I thought were going to be a great success. And this is all part of, learning how to, like take a business, a failed venture, and then hopefully you draw something that you can apply then to the next business.
Let's make a mental note of this, because I definitely want to go back to some of these stories. But
Absolutely.
just to recap there, this was not your first business venture, meaning like the desire to start your own company, you had even a lot long before Alfred Lane, or before you even knew you were going to have a job like the one you had at IBM. That's correct.
Absolutely. And actually, my parents and I were talking about this during the holiday season this past December. And I guess I forgot about this, but when I was a little kid, I used to make cupcakes and I used to sell them in school. And then my mom would make me lunch, and I didn't like my lunch sometimes because I would eat it every day. So then my people would pay me for my lunch because they like what my mom made. And I would take that money and buy, whatever junk food they had in the school cafeteria.
You were making business transactions at recess.
Yeah, and very, very young. And I think that, once I came to the United States and I saw how what society defined as success, I think I very quickly became accustomed to, looking for or defining success as being in a career that I loved, that was really well paying, that I was regarded as someone of value, just being a contributing member of society, and then just doing these things that I saw other people that were in my mind successful to emulate that.
Right.
And so, but through a series of events in my life, I've gotten some pretty big curveballs thrown at me that have made me question everything. And starting there, it was like there's got to be more to life than just sort of like this path that everybody that I knew seems to take. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that path whatsoever, but I felt like there was something else for me out there, and so that began the quest of like, let's get back to what this means for me.
So it was definitely just like a curiosity you had since you were little. You were almost in a way talented, if you want to say it that way, even since you were a little kid, because you knew that the concept of like getting something, selling it for a bigger price, like the whole supply chain of things. So at some point that was probably brewing all throughout your teenage years, your whatever. You grow to follow the steps that we all do, right? Like you go to school, you have to grad, like all that crap, and then eventually you get to a point where it's like I need to follow this, but you do it without really quitting your job because you have a good thing going, because it would be very risky, right? Like it's very risky to just say like, hey, I have this business idea, I'm gonna quit, I don't know if it will work, but I'm gonna quit this good job I have and see if I can live with it. So I guess my question there is, at what point do you realize like, well, I'm doing good enough, or I need to, even if I'm not doing good enough, I need to dedicate all my time and effort 100% to Alfred and Lane, and I'm gonna let this good opportunity I have with IBM pass to dedicate and follow my passion? Like when does that happen?
Well, this is the second time I've done this, and I'm hoping that this is the one. The first time I did it was 5 years ago. I quit a job. I was making pretty good money at a company doing freelance, and I was working full time. And then at the time, I thought that at the time I had a business partner, and he had other ventures that he was pursuing, and I said, well, why don't I, while you handle that, I work full time for Alfred Lane. And I did that. So I quit my job. I worked with on Alfred Lane full time for want to say like 6 months, about 7 months.
Alfred Lane is the name of your current company, right? For those that never.
My current company, correct. And then at the time, we had some issues that came up with the company, so it was time for me to go find a job. At the time, I didn't have savings. Just to get really practical about like my thought process, I didn't have any savings and I had debt. The savings situation and the debt situation were because either school loans or when you're younger, you don't really understand. At least I didn't understand like financial responsibility and what that really entails.
Right.
And that came to bite me a little bit. I wasn't as disciplined. So went back to, the corporate world. And that's when this opportunity with IBM came along. And it was great because I was doing IBM, but then I was also doing freelancing. And with that freelancing, it allowed me to save up money,
right,
pay off all of my debt, and really start thinking about investing that money, that extra money that I was making, into Alfred Lane. Fast forward to a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I was able to buy my business partner out with my savings, still without incurring any debt. And then fast forward to October, November last year, things at IBM started to evolve. So I was no longer part of the Apple IBM partnership. I was now just a consultant, right, with IBM, which meant that the consultant lifestyle of leaving Sunday nights, Monday mornings at 5 a.m., coming back home on Thursdays, late at night, was the norm. And the project that I was on was really an incredible project if my goals were to grow in that career path.
Right.
And because I was working there Monday through Thursday nights and like nights during the day and night, it was taking me away from Alfred Lane. Ultimately, I felt that Alfred Lane is something that I've been trying to build for the last 7 years, and it's something that I want to see succeed. It's something that I'm building that is a valuable asset, and having some savings saved up, and with the knowledge that if I do fail, or not fail, but just if things don't go the way that I intend, I can always get another job because of how marketable the skills that I have are. In between that, though, right now I'm doing some consulting, which allows me to have the flexibility. I don't have to necessarily show up in an office and, punch in and punch out. I am strictly measured on the results that I bring to my clients.
Okay. So content overall.
Yes, sir.
Very, very much.
Yeah, definitely. Like we were mentioning earlier, before our call, like I work like 3 times more than. Yeah, like it's pretty insane, but I'm working on my own, on my own company, on my own stuff, and so there's a level of it's very rewarding.
Well, of course, and it has to be. So many. It's a learning experience for me, man, because just from the last explanation that you gave, so many questions that go. I see what you're doing, interchanging a little bit of beer, a little bit of whiskey, keeping the conversation fluid. I like it. So
yes, sir.
But I guess let's take it step by step. Before I want to ask you about the main goal of all of this and why Alfred Lane. What is the concept and why is it that you jumped into the fragrance? But let's take it back one step before that. Again, you said about some of the business ideas you had in the past, and I think like most entrepreneurs, that seems to be the norm. The first ones don't really work out, or they don't work out until you spend a number of years, like pushing. So can you tell me about a couple of ideas that you kind of regret trying, or that maybe discouraged you, like to think like maybe this owning your own business thing is kind of not a good idea? I'm guessing that you had those thoughts and those feelings a couple of times.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's see. One of the first ones was a website that I created. So, this is at the time where, actually, this was at the time where, like Twitter started kind of becoming very popular. I want to say like 2010, 2011. And so one very popular thing that people would do is they would have a microblog where they would post their thoughts, and they would go to Twitter, but then that would feed into their blog, like into their own personal blog and their website.
Right.
So with that concept, I had this crazy idea of creating a website called the Why website.
Okay.
And the Why website was basically
I'm excited, man.
Me asking questions. My favorite question in the, sorry about this.
You're good.
But,
You're good.
Someone's puppy.
Yeah. You're good. Is that the neighbor?
Yeah, that's our neighbor.
That's the train of thought, or
yeah, that's my train of thought. Okay.
The Why website.
My favorite question in the whole world is why.
Okay.
Like if I die and I get why answered, I am gonna be like so happy. And but that's kind of like a crazy concept, because why begets another why. So that's hence the reason why in my mind why website was cool. So the why website was asking like why questions, and not why questions that like, oh yeah, well it's because of this, but like really why. So for example, this one is kind of gross, but like it was really, I posted it. I was like, why does poop smell?
Right.
And yes, there's scientific reasons for why, and the sulfur and the things that we eat and stuff like that. But like, it just to me, it just doesn't make sense for why we have to have that bodily function, one, and two, why it has to just stink.
Right. You wanted
and
to
so
have... Yeah, I get you.
So just imagine every day just posting questions that were just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And my thought was, people eventually are going to start reading these things and they're going to laugh. And then I'm going to make money I'm going to monetize it by putting ads.
Man, the thing is, it's not that crazy. What year was this?
2011, 2010, 2011.
So yeah, it might have been definitely even not even that crazy of an idea. I'm sure that there were plenty of websites like that by people that were thinking very similar, like either forums or those there's this ideas website, which is just
right.
people that upload ideas when they're high, and it's like stuff like that. Some of them worked out. I don't think it was a bad idea. I think it was
well. I don't know. Like I just tried it, and I mean, I spent a lot of time designing it. It feels more like a section from like a subreddit,
right?
For like a thread. That's what I feel like would have been more appropriate. Another idea was called Funny Grills, and since I was a little kid, I always enjoyed looking at magazines and grabbing a black ink pen and drawing a hole on people's teeth, so that it looks, you see them missing a teeth, like a tooth or whatever. And so my thought was like, and like another thing that I saw often is like, if I used to take the train in Chicago, and let's say that it's like a, commercial, like a billboard or something, or like in the train station, people always found the time to, grab like a black Sharpie and draw a little hole on people's teeth. And I just thought it was funny. And I'm like, what if I just upload,
images?
Just a bunch of images of people missing teeth because, people did that. But then the whole vandalism thing, the whole defacing private property thing, was an issue. And I was like, all right, I should probably not do that. I mean, I was defacing my own magazines, but it could be seen as encouraging defacing other people's property. So.
Well, especially like that's another topic for another time, but that's changed a lot, right? Like probably now, even you would have never thought of that idea, because now everything is copyrighted, everything is easily searchable, everything is. Back in I feel like the internet was actually freer Is that the word, more free or freer? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
But does that make sense? Like back in the day,
not as regulated. Yeah.
yeah, you know, like that is an interesting thing. Even though there's more people on it, like it's more regulated. Anyway, so okay, fair enough. So you had those ideas. That was obviously not enough to discourage you, which is obviously a good thing. That seems to be the common trend with the entrepreneurs that actually make it. They get knocked down, and they have to get back up. What made you go for Alfred Lane? Is a fragrance type of business, correct? Like you personally have given me this. I never even knew this was a thing, but you gave me a wax that actually like I showed my dad. My dad liked it a lot, and again, I'm used to cologne, you know. But
Right.
like you had a wax. You had a variety of products. Laercio, a friend of ours, has shown me a couple of things that you've given. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. What made you go through that? How did you discover that? Did you have a passion? Was it simply something you saw? Well, there's a market in this. This seems like a good idea. What is the whole story behind you jumping into fragrance?
Yeah. So at the time, I think that I just stumbled upon. I was going to a store in Chicago, and I stumbled upon a solid perfume, and it was really interesting to me because this thing. I was like, "What is a solid perfume?" And I would look at it, and it was a wax-based scented balm that you would apply, you know, like by using your finger or like the back of your nail and you know, kind of scraping a little bit, and then you apply it in pulse points as you normally would with a spray cologne. But this was for women. The ones that were on the counter were for women, and I just thought. She did have one, and I think I say she because I later found out who the owner was that was making this, and she was, you know, went to school for chemistry.
Okay.
She had this cologne or this solid perfume that was for men, but the title was douchebag, or smells like douchebag or something like that, and the smell was not good. One, and the name was just not. The name was just like, what guy wants to wear this? And if a guy wants to wear this, it better smell really nice, because otherwise there's no redeeming quality. I was like, this is not. I bet this does not get sold.
Right.
So at the time, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I had a business partner at the time, and like we were just kind of talking about business ideas, and he had more of a background in business than I did. I've always been sort of the designer. I had no, you know, prior, like any successful ventures. I didn't really understand retail. And, you know, we kind of said, why don't we try this solid idea thing, or solid cologne idea thing? It's something that we can maybe, I grew up wearing colognes all my life, and I felt, for some weird reason at the time, and I actually now I've educated myself in it, but like at the time I felt like I think I can come up with 3 scents that people will like. Let's try it. And so he was like, well, I just thought that, you know, at the time I had over like 50 colognes.
Oh,
and
wow.
I knew, like, yeah, so that's part of the reason why I had that.
Yeah.
I really did. So like I remember one time, my business partner at the time and we sat down in my apartment, and I classified 50 my different colognes, and I said, these are what I consider kind of like the woodsy colognes. So you want to wear, like, you know, maybe to go out or like during fall or winter. These are the really bright citrusy colognes, very great for the summer, you know. And then here are some more like middle of the road. And so I'm like, if we can pin in that spectrum, if we can pin one scent for that hit those 3 marks, I think that we could do something. And he's like, well, clearly you know what you're talking about. I'm like, no, I don't. But I was like, hey, I don't know how to make solid cologne. And at the time he was like, well, you know, let's just YouTube it. And like, I think that's literally the model, like the the theme of my life. Like if I don't know something, just kind of,
Yeah, like
Google it and YouTube it and search for answers. And we started kind of messing with some formulas, a lot of trial and error, trying different consistencies, designing the packaging, and then eventually the company was born. So we were a solid cologne company, and we got our first customers by walking in a snowy winter, a few weeks in like January, February of 2013, going door to door in the streets of Wicker Park, up and down
oh my God.
Milwaukee Avenue.
Okay. Wow. That's I guess I get it. Like I think that we all want that at some point, and so you do like, well, the hustle is, especially when you don't know business is, that's one way to sell it, right? Like go door to door and whatever. But I think that even just trying it that first time, that's daunting. Like honestly, like I sold cheese once. Like I bought a bunch of cheese, from and it used to go sell it door to door. I'm like, this is so boring, and and it's tedious, and sometimes people just don't even open, even though they're there, or they close the door in your face. So
Yeah.
did you enjoy it? Like, were you enjoying like that? Like,
I think at the time, like I started watching, Shark Tank, and there's something that I started educating myself in business. And when we got our first yes, like it was like, oh my God, it was kind of addictive. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
There's something about, it's like when you are interested in a girl and, you try to play it cool and like, hey, and she smiles back, and then you start talking, and all of a sudden you guys are dating.
yeah,
That kind of is how it is for me, because we worked really hard to make the products smell great. Like we constantly kept evolving it to make it better, and people started taking notice. We started getting press from GQ, Men's Journal, a bunch of different men's blogs, and I was like, oh my gosh, we are making this out of a kitchen and an apartment, and these major publications are talking about this solid cologne. And we were not by any means the first folks to do it, because this has been done since like Egyptian times, but we were definitely bringing it back, and we were one of the few companies that kind of brought it back. There was, I think around that time, there was a little bit of that nostalgia of just made in America,
Yeah.
Now that, like, at the time things were very, and there still are, but just the globalization had reached a point where you could buy everything very
made
cheap.
in India, made in China, made it, yeah.
Right. And having something that was made in America, made in Chicago, handcrafted, artisanal, there was something very appealing about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I found it interesting that you said that, and that's the reason that I'm asking you about all this. For one, curiosity on my own, but I think that people are just normally wondering is like, man, I would love to start my own business, but one, I don't even know what I would start it in, and so that's your first problem. Like, it seems like you had a good idea because you were passionate about this. But I know friends of mine who have started a business doing a specific thing that they don't even know about. They're just doing it for the money, for whatever reason. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in your case is an example of someone that, okay, I have no idea. I'm no chemical engineer. I'm not like, I have no idea how to mix these chemicals, how to make, a fragrance work. I'm gonna find out. So like, it is completely doable. It is completely doable to do it by YouTube and whatever. Now, you said you work hard on the smells and on the fragrances. When you said you guys did, that's what you mean, right? Like, you were mixing like compounds, like were you buying dust or waxes or whatever, and pretty much experimenting, right? Because you were not following, maybe you knew how to do it, but you were not following a specific formula because you wanted to create your own smell. So how did you come up with your own smell? Was it just experimenting over and over?
It was experimenting. So like the fragrances, we knew that it took certain oils to make the solid cologne, and we knew that it needed to have, through YouTube, we found out, okay, so you need like some sort of wax to make it hard, and we need it to be kind of some moisturizer. So, that's where the shea butter comes in. And we need the oil to be, have a few oils that are kind of moisturizing as well, and kind of give it, help with the consistency. So that's where, we play with different oils, and like now jojoba oil and vitamin E came in. And then for the fragrances, we worked with a company to develop those three scents that we wanted to hit, right? So like the first scent, which still till this day is our bestseller, it's a very woodsy smell. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have another scent that is very citrusy and light and fresh, and it's very clean. And then within that, there's a third one of the signature fragrances that I call rather, that it kind of borrows from both sides
of the spectrum. Yep.
Yeah. And so a lot of experimentation, trial and error. At the time, right now by myself, I can knock out 1,000 colognes in 5-6 hours, the solid colognes. At the time, we would knock out like 36 in 8 hours. I mean, because we used like a double boiler, and it looked like a meth lab. Not gonna lie to you, it looked really like, what are you guys doing? But it always smelled great, and our neighbors always knew that we were working because it just smelled like cologne.
Well, so let me ask you on that. Like, I mean, you were doing that in your apartment. You guys didn't rent like a little lab or something. Did you ever run into any issues about, like, was that even legal, like technically speaking, like to or did you know, like maybe you didn't know at the time? And let me ask you that again. How are you doing it now? I mean, you're doing it at home?
So at the time, the only things that we would be, I think facing are, that the lease says you cannot use an apartment for commercial purposes.
Right.
But that's kind of a hard thing to say, because I mean, a lot of people nowadays work from home.
Well, and it's a stretch. Yeah. It's not like you were producing like massive quantities for a whole city or something. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I think that for now, the main thing is just having the right equipment and the right hygiene protocols, and just I've expanded my product from doing the solid colognes. Now I make candles, and I partner with a guy who makes incense cones. And so I wanted to branch out from just doing personal fragrance, which I love a lot, but like I also wanted to tap into, like, guys in general do not like, they don't necessarily think as much or have as many options for home fragrances. If you get a plug-in, or if you get like like the candles that are available, they're usually tend to cater to women. And man, there's not like part of the reason why I got into that side of the business is because, like, there's nothing like you lighting up an incense cone or a candle because you like it, but then if like you have someone come over, like I've had girls come over and say, "Oh my gosh, this smells really great," and it's just like, like, it's cool. Like I'm serving a market that does not have as many options as for women.
Dude, you're 100% right. Like, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I've ever. I'm lying. Like, I was gonna say, I don't think that I've ever bought an aromatic candle, but I know I have a couple of times, and it was for the exact same purpose that you're saying. Like, I would have a date, I want to make sure that it smells nice or whatever, but it's not something that I, think of as a guy normally. And I know that in part is because normally those candles will be like in, not a women's section, but it's like it's the aromatic section, which is normally like a section that is also next to a lot of what seem to be more female oriented type of products. So I get what you're saying. Like if the packaging, the marketing, the color, everything is more attractive to men, I would totally be inclined to buy something like that. That's an interesting idea, man.
And I mean, here's the other thing. I mean, like my background the last few years has been around creating experiences.
Right?
And when I would get back from work, when I would get back home from work, I would light up an incense cone or a candle, and the candles that I make have a wooden wick, and so they make a little crackle sound, which is very soothing and kind of makes you feel like you're next to like a little chimney. And if you don't have a chimney, this is like a really cool way of having that experience. But then it also is scented, so like I would serve myself a little, a glass of bourbon, and just something about just sitting and like enjoying like the flickering and just really like taking a break to decompress from a long day at work. I feel like men don't do, maybe they do now because now this is something that's serving them, but I don't think that traditionally men have had something like that. And I don't even think of it as a gender thing, but I do know that, like when I'll hear my friends, my female friends talk about, they get home and they'll switch into like stretchy pants or yoga pants, and they'll pour themselves a bottle of wine and like music. And I'm like, it's gotta be like a version of that for guys.
Dude, I'm with you. I get it.
I don't know if there's stretchy pants for guys. Maybe there are, but like for me, the way that I'm describing the lighting of the incense cone or the candle, and then just like a glass of bourbon, and just like for me, I just like sometimes I just need to sit.
Yep.
And just quiet.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know.
Man, I completely get it. I 100% get. I think that this concept. I don't know what is the word for it. It's escaping me right now. But the both for the scented candles, for the relaxation, like what you're saying, like women get home, get in some stretchy pants and pour themselves a glass of wine. That sounds freaking great, man. Right? Like I mean, but normally it's not something. Again, the word escapes me. It's stigmatized, not stigmatized. There's a certain connotation that goes with that, to the point that if you're just with friends, you normally don't tell them. It's like, yeah, man, I cannot wait to get home, get some stretchy pants and get like, even if that's what you're gonna do, like maybe you'll be like, oh man, a beer sounds great, see you later. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't sound.
It doesn't sound appealing. It doesn't sound like that's the kind of thing that you should do. But yet, if I paint it the way that I paint it, and I actually do paint that picture to folks that have never lit a scented candle or an incense cone, because they'll ask me, how do you use this? And when do you use it? And to me, when someone asks me that, I'm so excited because I'm excited because I'm like, let me paint you this picture. And like, they've never experienced this. And then when they do it, and then they email me and they say, oh my God, man, like, this is so cool. I didn't know this was such a thing. It's like, have you ever drank a beer in the shower?
No, I don't. I mean, not that I can even recall. Maybe I haven't.
Oh, dude. So you got to do it. Like when you're getting ready on a Friday night, if you drink a beer in the shower, it's like revolutionary.
Really?
So obviously prevent the soap and the water. I mean, I'm talking about like my shower's like what, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, because I don't have hair. But like if I'm just like sometimes just in the shower and I'm just drinking a beer, oh man, it's like you got to try it. Once you try it, you're gonna be like, okay, he may be onto something.
Really? Okay. Well, man, I'm gonna choose you to that. That is a cool. Thank you for sharing that with me, man.
Cheers.
Okay, so you come up with a concept like a potential market. You've been doing it back to the kind of more elaborating on that same question that I asked you earlier, but just very recently you decided like you need your full strength. You don't have to answer, and I pardon if this is more very much of a personal question, but wasn't it scary from the economic side? Like, meaning, were you making close to the same amount of money, or to the point that you were able to say, yeah, I don't need IBM? Or were you simply saying, like, well, maybe I'm not making enough, but I'm making enough to live, to dedicate myself fully to this? Like was money, your economic level, and the revenue that you were producing in your business a big factor into switching? Or was it just that you were tired, that you were like, I need to dedicate myself full time? Like,
Man, that's a really, really great question. So the way that I came about the decision of quitting was I actually, I'll preface it with this. I would not recommend anyone do what I did. And
everyone says that, though. Everyone that makes it says that, like, it's interesting.
Well, I'll tell you why. Here are the factors. If I don't know you and you ask me, okay, I really want to quit my job, I have a business, I want to quit, I would say to them, only quit if, one, you have no debt.
Right.
Two, you have savings. And I'm talking about ideally at least 6 months of savings.
Right.
I didn't have 6 months. I had more like 3.
Oh, wow.
Also, only quit if you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Like, you don't have a car note. Like, I don't have any, my only expenses right now are
living,
apartment, grocery. Everything else, like, I bought a car, like a 2002, I call my entrepreneur mobile, 2002 4Runner, because I needed to do markets, but it's like completely depreciated. I bought it outright in cash. My insurance is like very low.
Nothing.
And I don't really drive it. And so I would tell people to make sure that they just lower their expenses. That doesn't mean you don't have fun. But it just means that, like constant going out, constant eating out, all that stuff.
That's got to come to a stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just minimize only once a month or something, and just keep it very, very minimal.
But also, I would also tell, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like you said, that part I think is important, right? Like, you also cannot just say, like, I'm not going to do anything that doesn't bring me pleasure, right? Because that will drain you. Like, that's probably important, correct? Like, you need to have enough to also give yourself little pleasures throughout the whole process, because it will be grueling, right? You probably need
100%.
Yep.
100%. So, I think you and I in our friendship have come to know about the flask. So I have a few flasks, and so whenever I go out, that's my jam. So if I want to drink, I'll pregame at home or I'll pregame with my friends, and then I'll just take my flask. And that's why I don't think that you have to cut yourself. Oh no, I'm not going to do anything fun. I mean, like, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I still have like Netflix because I don't have cable, but I want to have something to
entertain
that's not business related.
Yeah.
I do a pretty good job of always being surrounded with like education and like podcasts and, just really good programs. But once in a while, you got to just not think about the business,
right?
And you got to be able to unplug a little and just let the mind kind of process things in the background, so that when you do get back to it,
that you're recharged. That you're recharged. Absolutely. Okay. Man, very informative on that aspect. But okay, is there anything besides like having savings and any other sort of advice to anyone that might be thinking like, well, I have the money, like I have 6 months savings. I just saw this guy Rafael, and he just suggested that. What would be? Is there anything else that you would tell them? Never do this, or you must have this, one or the other.
I mean, like, so the savings thing is just so that if and when things get rough for you, you're not making decisions based out of fear. I've done that in the past, and like, you never want to make a financial decision when it's clouded, when your judgment is clouded with fear, whether it's investing, or buying a house, or selling a house, or just anything that's related with money, and really with anything in life, but because you're coming from a reactive perspective. But I think that having that the personal financial platform is very important, so that you can weather the storm a little bit better.
Yep.
The reason why I quit was because I didn't have most of the things that I'm telling you to do. But what I knew was that the upside of me quitting my job and working on my business and like seeing it succeed was greater than me staying at IBM and making the good money that I was making and just continue that sort of monotonous. It started getting monotonous, and not because the projects were not interesting, but just for me, it wasn't my interest anymore.
You start feeling a little bit unfulfilled, correct? Like
absolutely. And it happened to coincide with December, and I get very introspective around the holidays, and it happened to be a new decade, and it happened to be a new year. And so I said, I want to take if I were an investor knowing my story, I would want to invest in me. Okay. So why not invest in myself and give myself this chance and this bet? It's a big bet, and it can either pay really, really well, it can pay off, like the upside is really high, or the worst thing that could happen. And I created several like tiers of consequences to mitigate me going crazy with fear. Like the worst thing that could happen is that it's 2-3 months out and you're not making so full disclosure, I'm not paying myself with Alfred Lane at the moment, because I've spent a lot of the money that I was making at IBM investing in research and development for products that I've released in the company.
Okay.
So January and early February, and actually I have a trade show coming up next Monday and Tuesday. I've spent the last month and a half trying to get new accounts and stores to carry my products. What that does is they sell my products. It's on a wholesale level, but it allows me to have more distribution. Whenever I was with IBM, I had to take a lot of vacation time, which it was a no-brainer for me because it was like, this is my company. But like eventually I ran out, and I don't have that stress anymore. So my thought was, well, if I don't get to a point where the company can pay me at least something, at least my rent, a great skill that I'm very thankful for, my time being at IBM is consulting. So all I have to do is just package up my knowledge. And I've done this in the past. This is how I got out of debt, and this is how I, put a lot of my savings, a lot of money in the bank just to save up. Is just taking my skill set of designing, solving people's problems, making them money, and just going out there and looking for people that were a good fit for what I was trying to offer. So that's consulting. And actually, right now I'm in the process of negotiating a contract with a client that is interested in just that.
Well, so it's obviously happy to hear that. I don't know that would be advice. Like I want to, and it's not that you're lucky. You obviously had to work for those skills. However, a lot of people don't have that. That alternative, right? Like they might not be able to do consulting or put the skills after they quit, depending on what they were doing, to be profitable or to help them a little bit. So in a way, that also helped, right? Like it was not just the fact that you had the savings, but you have, let's suppose that Alfred Lane just gets closed by the government, whatever, you still have another source of income. Like so you have a little bit of a cushion since you have that set of skills. And you can, not only that, but this set of skills that you have allows you to do something that doesn't add any additional stress regarding the time that you need to take off, because it's kind of freelancing pretty much, right? I mean, that's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. Like, I think that yes, the consulting skill set that I got gives me the confidence to know that I'm not going to starve and that I can make it. But I would say that if you're quitting your job because you have a business and it's making money. First of all, my company is making money. So I'm not just quitting. I didn't quit my job with a job or a business that does not have a proven idea. Like, you just have to make sure it's a level of risk that you have. And if you've done, like, if Jeff Bezos quits, Amazon, and he doesn't have any, another job, and he's like, oh geez, what's a good business idea? Like, I think he'll be all right. But the idea for me was that you have the confidence that you'll survive based on your experience. But if you quit your job and you have a company that's making money, and you have the risk tolerance to be able to, withstand whatever that means, because it's very situational, it's very personal, and knowing that if it doesn't work out, and it's not able to pay you, even if you don't have the consulting skill set, which I just happen to have, I still believe, especially here in the United States, that you can find ways to make money.
Yeah.
And you can, if you cut your costs low, you can, either room with people, you can, I listen a lot to Gary Vaynerchuk, for those that may not know and want to Google him. Like, the guy is, his goal is to buy the New York Jets, and he's actually very close to it. And if anything, I think he is just holding off because he has the money, but he's just like, he really enjoys the hustle. So, like, he goes to garage sales and he flips things. He buys something that someone might not want, and he puts it on eBay and he flips it. There's so many ways of making money that don't require you to be a consultant. It's just, can you Google it? Can you Google, okay, so, like, I have a buddy of mine who's also a designer. He would go to Goodwill and he would find, like, really nice clothes secondhand, and he would look for the price on eBay. And, like, in Goodwill, they're selling it, a jacket for $20, and he said on eBay, a couple of those listings sold for $100. Dude, right there, minus the listing fee and the shipping, you can make 50% profit. So yeah. How hard do you want to work in addition to your business? Because I'm working on my own stuff in addition to, the business.
Yep.
So that I can keep myself afloat, but then so that I can also have money that I can put into the business until eventually I don't have to do that anymore. Eventually, I don't want to have multiple jobs. I want to have multiple sources of revenue where I don't have to have my time attached.
Yeah. No, pretty much what you're saying. Yeah, I think there's a certain level of ingenuity and skill, but you have a good point. It's grit, right? You need grit.
It is grit.
Like that. That's really what
100%.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, how bad do you want it, right? Like,
exactly.
I'm not comfortable. I'll say it this way. Like, I'm not in a comfortable position, and part of my practice, every day, is to, like, I really like the Stoic philosophy, because it doesn't make it so that you don't. People think that, oh, he's Stoic, he doesn't feel anything. No, it's not that. It's that, like, you become accustomed to, you become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you become sort of like, you think of yourself, you have a fear inside of you, and, like, you ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen? And where does that fear come from? Like, why do I think that I'm going to be homeless? Did that ever happen in the past? Almost did. But was I okay? Yes. Did you make it? Yes. Do you think it can happen in the future? Possibly. But do you have friends? You know what I mean? Like, just go through the mental exercise.
I think that you nailed it, and I'm glad that you said that, because I wholly 100% believe in that. I think that is even happiness, right? Like, it's not just a business, but it's being uncomfortable. It's like it's a hunt, it's a pursuit, it's a constant thing, and it's going on all the time. And when you're in the middle of it, in motion, that's when you feel your best. And it's just that we get to this point where we feel like there's this goal, this dream that when we get there, we'll be happy. And that's not really real. That's not a real place. Like, because once you
Right.
get there, you want more and whatever. Like that,
Right.
what brings you the true happiness is that hustle, but also achieving those goals. And
Absolutely.
and it brings me to the final question. We've done 1 hour. This was perfect, man. The thing is that with this type of interview, also, like, I feel like we could probably keep this going for like 4 hours. Like, I have so many, just as we're talking, so many more questions I want to dig into. But I think this is perfect. Let me close with that on this topic, at least. What is? Do you have a goal in mind as of right now? And has that goal changed since you started the business? And I'm talking really, when I say a goal, I mean pretty much meaning financial. You don't have to disclose a number, but pretty much, do you want to be able to, buy a house and be able to travel, have a regular life and live off of your business? Is your goal to work only 10 hours a week, maybe, living very, very comfortable type of lifestyle? Is your goal to be a millionaire? Or are you kind of simply grinding, using true grit, and seeing where that takes you? Like, what is the goal here?
That's a really good question. So, in my mind, and this is sort of my goal for the next 2 to 3 years. In my mind, the company is doing, 5 to 10 times the revenue that it's generating now. It is paying me a salary. I can front load a lot of the work so that I can just work in like batches. I can spend the whole month making products, send it to my fulfillment center, and then travel and live in different countries. So Miami is my home base, and I like to keep it that way. I'd like to live in other countries 3 to 6 months at a time, travel around the world, because I feel like I love traveling so much, and I love traveling because I want to travel, not because a company tells me that I have to go to a certain place that that's not where I want to go. And be able to do that. I don't want to buy anything. Like, I'm very happy with what I have right now. If anything, like, I like watches, maybe get a nice watch. But like, outside of that, I just want to travel, live in different places. I want to drink really good wine, eat really good food, and just meet people. That's like in the future, like beyond that, I don't know. Like, do I want to be a millionaire? Absolutely. Do I want to, if a company approaches me about, buying the company, would I sell it?
Maybe. You never know, right?
You never know. I mean, like, that would be I can't say yes or no at the moment. I think that if it happened, I would have to be in those shoes to really know. It would be an incredible proposition. Like,
of course, but
I mean,
but like,
I do want to live a comfortable lifestyle, but like, I don't even know what that means for me right now. And so the immediate goal for me is just like to be able to travel and to not have to be like, I don't mind doing the work, work a lot and just kind of front load that in batches. So work for a month and then be off for 3. But it's more like just having the flexibility to move around whenever I want to and to go wherever I want to go.
Dude, of course. I think you. It's an unfair question, and it's a difficult question to answer because I know you. I think you're a very level-headed guy, but the reality of it is that I think that you're human, and like all humans, you're greedy, because we are, at a certain level, greedy. I think that you gave a really good answer, because what you mentioned, what you want, I shared like the same type of goals as you. You don't really need that much to be happy, but like also you need enough, like travel, like good food, like the finer things in life are also not free. However, it is also possible that once you get to that point where if Alfred Lane explodes or something, your perspective changes, right? It's like, well, maybe I don't need only just one car. Maybe I need that Tesla looks pretty good. Hey,
maybe. I mean,
you know,
those cars look fun. I
yeah,
don't know, maybe
that's
my
what I mean.
taste will evolve. You know.
I mean, I don't, like I'm happy with the pool in my apartment complex, but it would be good to have one of my own. And I can afford it. Why not?
Infinity pool now.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point, right? Like it is interesting to see how that changes, but it makes me happy to hear that. It seems to be that your goals are not money oriented. For one, you're doing this because it's a passion, which I think is a key component for success. Like you always wanted to do it. You're taking risks. And you're still keeping yourself grounded, man. It really makes me happy to hear that that's the path that you've taken, man. Like it really does. And dude, thank you for sharing this with me. I'm glad to do this because again, you've been at it for a long time. We talk about it a lot, but in reality, sometimes we just don't remember. I think some of these things maybe you've told me in the past, and after a couple of whiskeys, that like maybe I don't remember them as well, or whatever the thing may be. But I think it's really good information.
I don't even remember what I told you.
Exactly. So
this is great. Now this is documented. We
exactly,
have it.
Man.
No, this is great, man. And thank you for this is such a cool idea. First of all, and I think that. I think we all met because we all kind of have interesting experiences that we share. And to me, you're in Chicago and I'm in Miami, and like some of the things that I miss about being in Chicago are these kinds of conversations that we've always had, and sharing a meal with my good friends that they just happen to, like, I don't know, like I think that you attract what you put out, and if you have a particular like angle about life or like story or experience, you attract people that also have interesting stories. And so, man, to me, this is such a cool thing and platform and project that you're developing to do that.
Dude, thanks. Again, I'm really happy to do it. I'm happy to hear how everything's going. And again, let's close this topic. Again, I wanted to thank you for your time. I do want to ask you that hopefully we can do it again on this same topic. I want to write like some of the questions. I want to re-listen to this, man, because there really is 1 hour is just not enough, man. Like, we're just touching barely the surface. Like, I want to hear about some of the struggles, some of the achievements, what made you the happiest. But it's a bit of a longer conversation.
Absolutely.
For now,
anytime.
Cutting this one, stopping recording. I'm gonna refill my whiskey. And do you mind if we do just another quick one on? I wanted to ask you on moving from state to state and from Venezuela to the U.S. If you have a couple more minutes.
Absolutely. Well, I have to refill my whiskey too.
All right, dude. Thank you. This was great. Let me record.